Hi everyone, and welcome to stuntlives.com. My name's Alistair Clarke, and I'm the founder and creator of stuntlives.com. And as this is the first ever video, I thought I'd pull out all the stops and introduce a guy that needs no introduction, in fact, and his name is Andy Armstrong. So sit back and enjoy the video. Catch you soon. Bye for now.
I've been asked about sort of dangerous stunts before. It's always a tricky one because I think at what level do they become? I mean, I think once, or more to the point, once they get to a point where someone could be killed if it went wrong, I guess that, you know, that's the sort of plateau that they will reach as far as safety. I mean, one of the most dangerous, potentially dangerous stunts that I did, I think you can see online actually, is one that I performed years ago for a movie called Honor Bound, with it was shot in former Yugoslavia, and I rode a bicycle between. You can find. I can send you a link to it probably, but it's two cars going down the road, banging together, and the passenger in this car is talking to the driver in this one, and what we did, we built a car here with a driver on the other side, so that they were both being driven not by the two actors, George Dunter and a guy called John Philbin, two good actors, and they're driving along, banging together, having a conversation on a narrow gravel road, and they're doing 70 miles an hour. And at one point in the dialogue, they say, George Dunter says, "Look out," and there's a bicycle coming down the middle of the road, and they park for a second and then come back again. And I rode the bicycle, and I did it four takes, and it was really, you know, I have a big affection for Buster Keaton and some of the things he did. So I try and often in a lot of movies put a little nod to Buster Keaton in things, and that was one that I wanted to do as a sort of tribute to Buster Keaton. But the funny thing is, they wouldn't let me do it on the movie until I finished directing my sequence, because I think even the director thought and the producer thought I was going to be killed. So, and the funny thing is, I had Remy Julian and his team driving the cars, and even Remy, you know, was he was videoing it from a third car, and even he was saying, you know, he was like nerve-wracking. We did it four times. Two in this direction and two in that direction, so I put cameras on the car so you could see it.
Right.
And the funny thing is, I timed the dialogue with the actors and dropped the stone out the window, so I knew at what point they should get to say, "Look out." And I had, you know, one of my assistants in the bushes, so that could tell that the actor was getting to the cars were getting to the same point. But we planned everything meticulously. And the morning we came to do it, it was quite frosty, so it was, you know, it was dangerous. But I talked to the drivers, and if there was any issue, they would throw the cars in the ditches, basically. But once we went past this certain mark, the tree, they knew that I wasn't going to abort. I was going to stay in the middle.
Right.
But the funny thing is, we checked and planned and, you know, worked out everything very methodically, except the bicycle. The prop man had given me the bicycle in the morning, and I hadn't realised that he'd just gone to some dodgy old shop in Yugoslavia and bought a bicycle. And you know, they come in a like axe plate flat, so he put the handlebars and the pedals and all that on, but they were all finger tied.
Oh,
so funny. The terrible thing was, which is the mum that's in the movie, oddly enough, that one of the takes is in the movie is the fourth take, and so by now the cars know that I'm going to be on their path, and they're not worried about it. So they're doing a genuine 70 miles an hour, bang, you know, coming towards me. And it's a pretty ominous sight when you see a narrow road. You're in the middle of it, and you're cycling along with two cars coming towards you with no gap. And I mean, as we got that, I went past the tree, which was our sort of universal signal that if I went past there, I was not going to abort. I was staying in the middle of the road. And as I went past the tree, the pedals slipped, and it was sort of going, and now, and as I sort of slipped with it, the handlebars were loose. So now it was like the clown car from the
Oh my God.
And so I'm wobbling down the road and the cars are coming at 70 and eventually they park. And on that take, my elbow just touched one of the car's mirrors. But it was bloody hairy, but that's the shot that's in the movie. I'll try and sit up.
So how long did that take you to actually prepare then to do that? You did it in 4 takes, but then say
one of those things that I always wanted to do when I first suggested it in the chase, because I thought it would be a nice thing to put in the chase, because it's one thing I always like to do in action sequences, and it's something that's missing from a lot of action sequences. I feel you never want to miss completely a little bit of humour now and then, or even if it's ironic or whatever. There's nothing worse for me than when you see an action sequence and it's full of some sort of idiot pretend macho actor, and everything's macho. They do everything, and they're sort of tougher than anything. I think one of the reasons that Arnold Schwarzenegger was so good at some of those action roles is there was always a little bit of tongue-in-cheek or a little bit of humour to it. You always had the impression that he wasn't taking himself that seriously. Yeah, and I think that's very important. Because it's always the clowns that take themselves that seriously that are the biggest wimps on earth anyway. It's nonsense. It's
definitely.
I think you can put little bits of humour into every bit of action. Yeah. And it's something I've tried to do in that movie. And they said, when I pitched this idea, I always try to sort of steal something from a sort of Buster Keaton.
Well, so is Buster Keaton one of your main inspirations then for?
He's a large inspiration, because I think he was so far ahead of his time. And, one of the greatest compliments I had with the book that I've just done is that someone emailed me the other day and said that, it was a stunt woman and she's reading the book and she'd never seen any Buster Keaton really, but because I make several references to it in the book, she started watching them and was absolutely addicted watching all these things, because loads of his great stuff is available on YouTube, and he was just staggeringly skilled.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, well, there's one Buster Keaton thing I remember is where the house falls down.
Oh my God, fantastic. And it goes through the window,
Yeah, exactly. No CGI, nothing.
Dangerous stunts you could ever imagine. Because you look at the speed the wall falls. So it clearly weighed a huge amount. Well, you can't see the hinges. It must have had hinges or something at the bottom. But what about if it just kicked? It would only have to kick 6 inches off those hinges, and he wouldn't have. It would have hit him, and you can see by the weight of it. But that's certainly a favourite one. It's a brilliant stunt. Yeah, there's a big Buster Keaton sequence in the last Spider-Man, and there's a sequence. I'd shown a shot that I always loved that Buster did, where he walked into the road and grabbed a car and then took off like horizontal like a flag. And it always fascinated me, and I wanted to put it into Spider-Man in the beginning of the last movie where he's. In fact, we did. I convinced the director to do it, and it's quite a signature thing in the movie. He is the opening of the last Amazing Spider-Man. You see him flying, swinging through town, and then he's just standing on the side of the road at one point, and all the police cars go by, and he just walks out into the road, grabs the back of a police truck, and gets taken off taken along with it. And it's a stunt that Buster Keaton did in 1934, I think, and I was fascinated by it, so much so that I researched where he did it. I did a whole load of hours and hours of research about this stunt, because I thought at first, because he got completely horizontal, and I thought at first maybe it was, he did it on a hill or something, but it's only, he was doing it with old Model T Ford, so I checked out where it was, and I even found the block in where he did it in LA. And it's completely level, so that wasn't the trick. And then I told all my guys that I had on the show that I wanted to do this, and so they, one of my riggers started to talk about rigging up a a cable and everything on top of the truck, and a a hoisting system that we could jerk him up with a nitrogen air ratchet and all that. And in the end, I said, no. Look, Buster Keaton did it in front of your eyes, and somehow it's done. And the guy that I have doubling Spider-Man is at least as good an athlete as Buster was. Because but the wonderful thing about Buster Keaton is he was a massive contradiction. He was a superb athlete, but he was also an alcoholic. Right. He was very funny, but he hated people, terribly antisocial. So I said we must be able to do it the way he did it. So I studied it on and on and on, and I kept looking at finding the same clip all over the internet. And then I found one clip that was a few frames longer, and I realised in that one that at the very end of the shot, because the problem is things get loaded on the internet, and each time they get loaded on, they get trimmed a little bit down. Yep. And so I found this clip, and I realised at the end of the shot, he was actually falling a bit. And so then it occurred to me that what he'd done is he placed the camera in the absolutely optimum position so that he would be horizontal for just enough to get through the frame. And once I realised that, we still had a tougher problem because obviously he was on an old, almost square format, and we were on widescreen. So, so I had to choose a lens that that we could maximise him going out of picture at horizontal, and then we worked out the speed. And I did some tests with it, and we found that like 14 miles an hour was the perfect thing. And more than that, it almost pulled the stunt guy's arm off. Right. And less than that, he couldn't get horizontal. So what I did was made it a little bit more complex than Buster did. Buster did it with just one car, and I did it with a vehicle that he grabbed, but also a car going by in foreground and a car going behind, so that it seemed like they were all going faster. I varied the speed on those cars. Yeah. It's a signature move that's in the movie, and it made the still of it. There's a famous paparazzi guy in New York that's always shooting movies, and I know him quite well. So he came to me. They're always trying to shoo him off the set, which I always think is ridiculous because they're going to get pictures anyway. So you might as well put them in the right spot so they get good pictures. And so he came to me in the morning, we were doing something, he said, Andy, what are you doing here? Anything interesting, And I said, listen, go up the road, stand on that spot, be on a long lens, it'll happen here. And don't say I told you to. Be there and be ready when you see this SWAT truck coming down the road. Yeah. And he got the still, which made the front page of a New York paper. Wow, that's incredible. That really is. Yeah. So you said you did a lot of tests on that then. So how many tests? Tons of tests. Yeah, we did tons of tests. I had a parking lot and stunt people in vehicles and with a digital speedometer so we could get the speed absolutely perfect. And what I realised is that the way Buster Keaton did it is it's acting. He without you looking like he did, he loaded up his weight on one foot, and he looks like he's nonchalantly standing there, but he's actually, planted himself and loaded up one foot really well. So he sort of almost kicks himself up. It's a spring up almost thing, Yeah. And that was good. He was like a card sharp. He was. Yeah. He could conceal what he was doing, and he made it look like he was incredibly nonchalant. Yeah, and yet it was incredibly, really impeccably planned and worked out. That's really why I think what appeals to me about him is the whole contradiction thing. He looked like everything was an accident, and yet in reality, he must have planned these things. Oh, definitely. Yeah, absolutely to the most nth degree. Yep, definitely. So later on in his life, was he actually a stunt coordinator as well, or I don't know much about him? Well, he came. He had sort of 3 careers. He had this famous career early on. Well, he had 4 careers really. He had a career as a kid, where his parents were a vaudeville act, and when he was a little tiny kid, a baby almost, he wandered onto the stage apparently during an act. And the father, who was a heavy drinker, literally sort of picked up the kid and threw him across the stage. to get him off the stage. And the audience thought it was part of the act, loved it. So that became part of the act every night. Then they'd send a little kid on the stage and he'd pick him up, toss him across the stage.
Okay. Have you ever broken a bone or any injuries?
Oh yeah. I've not bad. I mean, the thing about stunt people that have loads of injuries, it's not really something to be proud of, but unfortunately they're an occupational hazard now. And I've broken the most common things I've broken are my wrists a few times and fingers and things like that. The serious thing is I have broken my back 3 times. So
how long were you out of action for? How long were you out of action for?
The last time, quite a little while, because I broke it in 5 places, and it was it was pretty serious. The first time was in a traffic accident when I was a kid, and I didn't know I'd broken it for years, and I used to have these headaches and things, and eventually I went to an osteopathic chiropractic guy, and he described the kind of injury he thought I'd had, the blow on the head sort of vertically, and sure enough, that's exactly what I'd had years before. So he thought I'd done some damage, but that was years afterwards, so there's no point in doing much about it. So then on Universal Soldier, I had a very heavy hit in the truck, and I had it x-rayed, and I had cracked the same vertebrae again that they could see was damaged. And then stupidly on a commercial, on a Mazda truck commercial, I jumped the truck far too big and far too heavily, and I had the sort of Wile E. Coyote moment where I was in midair, and sort of stopped going forward and sort of hanging in midair for a second. And I was in the air long enough to think, wow, this could hurt. And then I had a second thought, which I had time for a second thought, which was, well, maybe this won't hurt. Maybe this will be a sort of fade to black, and it'll be all over.
When you first did your stunt on camera, what were your thoughts when you're just about to do a stunt on camera? What are your thoughts and feelings?
It's not, or it shouldn't be ever of fear. I mean, it's always of your concern is, or should be really. If it's fear, you shouldn't be doing it, really. I mean, the real thought you have is of failure, is of screwing up.
Right.
That's the real. I think that's the thought of a professional stunt person. If you're one of these people that's in fear and in real scared stiff, then you shouldn't be doing it, because you're obviously past your own expectation limit. But respect, bordering on fear is a very healthy, if you don't have that, I've had people come to me and say, oh, you should meet my son, he should be a stuntman because he's broken his, he's got 17 concussions and he's broken his arms and legs and everything. The first thing I say is I don't want to go anywhere near it, because he's obviously got no respect for his body or his safety. And the last thing you want, you think about it, if you're in a dangerous situation, the last thing you want is someone around you that has no fear, because no fear, that's why I would never, I've been offered those as a sort of sponsorship thing, the no fear t-shirts. I would never wear one, because I don't agree with the sentiment. You should have fear. Everyone should have fear. Otherwise, you walk up to a polar bear and smack it in the mouth, and you wouldn't live very long if you didn't have fear.
That's true. That is true, actually.
Yeah, you have to have, you have to be able to control it and temper it with, into respect. Not more than that, but you must always have respect for things. Otherwise, you won't live very long.
Yeah, no, I like that. Well, no, because I was watching The Green Hornet, where your brother Vic was directing you in one of the car crashes, and he was just saying he was a nervous wreck seeing you,
because no matter, I've in several interviews, people have said, well, how does it feel when you're directing your son? In fact, my son was just directing a big truck crash in Mexico last week, and I was talking to him on the phone before, and he wasn't driving, but another son of another dear friend of mine was the stunt guy driving. The next generation for both of them. And yes, you're nervous. You're absolutely nervous. But the reality is, in all honesty, you have to be just as nervous, whoever it is, whether it's your son or whether it's, because everybody's someone's son or someone's daughter. You can't.
Definitely.
Yes, I mean, I think it's scary, and it's also, I'm sure, that particular one. I wanted to do. We did a whole load of crashes, and I did the first one. But I'm sure part of the fear is you think, well, as a guy that's 60-something years old, going to do a really violent turnover now. If I told the doctor years ago that said I wanted to fuse my back because I couldn't take the bump, that I was about to do a somersault a truck down the road, he'd probably think I was a mental case. But your fear is not necessarily because it's your kid or because it's your nephew or whatever else. You have to have that healthy respect, which certainly causes tension. I mean, I've said to someone yesterday that we were doing a very big stunt on a Metallica music video, and a friend of mine, in fact, he's my brother of my girlfriend that I've been with a long time, and he was going out the window, 44 floors up, 46 floors up, and on a little cable, we did it twice in a short period of time. But there's no part. If you can look on the YouTube channel. There's an interview with me with Lars, the drummer from Metallica, and I'm explaining it to him, and I said there's no partial failure. It's one of those things that you get completely right or someone dies. And it's huge tension, and you don't realise sometimes how much tension it causes. I remember that night, after doing that, we pulled it off safely and did 2 of them in about half an hour. When I drove home that night, I pulled out of the parking lot, and I couldn't turn my head left or right to look in the car, and I realised how much the muscles in my neck had just tensed up because of tension.
Yeah, blimey. Okay.
And I think Vic's statement there is also true in that it's far scarier to be directing and having designed the stunt and have someone else do it than it is for the guy doing it. I mean, I remember that night. I mean, I write about it in the biography. I remember that night very clearly because for me, it's a strange thing. The moment you press the button on a car, a violent turnover like that, when it's a cannon in the back, it's a nitrogen air cannon, and that's what some sort of car. But the moment I press that button and the car becomes airborne and you start twirling around in the air, it sounds strange to say it, but it's strangely relaxing,
right?
Because it's you have no more control over that point, so you have to just sit there, so you may as well sort of enjoy it. And I've always found those moments. I mean, it sounds ridiculous to say that they're relaxing, but they are. They're not relaxing if it's someone or someone else that you're getting to do it because you're tense because you're worried about them. But when you're doing it yourself, it's a fun ride,
Yeah. Okay. And so, how many takes? What's the longest amount, or the most amount of takes you've had to do to perform a stunt to get it just right?
One that was in the Guinness Book of Records, but it doesn't seem to be in there anymore. Is the huge fire burn I did on Hoffa. I mean, I was the stunt coordinator on the movie, but I designed this one particular stunt near the end of the movie that I was going to do myself, and it's a very big fire burn where I'm on fire, and Jack Nicholson. I designed a shot so that Jack would actually be the one that pushes me over.
Right.
And whenever I see Jack, we laugh about it because it burnt his eyebrows off, and it's he used to be a fireman years and years ago, and he's a friend, and it's a very, very cool stunt. It's the burn in it, but the thing about it is, in fact, what is worth getting is if you can rent the DVD of Hoffa, see if you can get the the collector's issue thing, because it has a great behind the scenes of me doing it, and Danny DeVito, who directed the movie, talking about me doing it, because I did it 7 times that night.
Yeah.
Which at the time was a world record, but because I wanted to do angles from lots of different angles. But the thing that makes it very, very cool is it's a huge fire, and that Jack's in the picture as well, which is good.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
And he and I are the only two. Jack and I have two big photographs of it, and he signed my photograph, and I signed his.
Right.
And I gave it to him years later on another movie. The fact I'd been having it, I had this thing printed out, this picture, still picture, and I gave it to him on another movie with him, and he was so excited. He went out to his trailer to sign mine and had me sign his, and stopped shooting while we went out. And did this I thought for a guy that owns several Rembrandts and all sorts of things, the fact that this picture is up on his wall is pretty cool,
Definitely. Wow.
It is. It's a very shocking image, seeing someone on fire. It's the same as like seeing someone hit by a vehicle or, your mind has conditioned you to tell you that that's an image that isn't good. I'm a stickler for never being the coordinator and the performer. It's one of the things I teach a lot of young stunt people in these seminars. Don't do that. Have someone else, because you need the voice of reason,
definitely,
which can overpower the voice of ego, bravado, and adrenaline. Which is what kicks in.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I know you said one of the favourite stunts that you've performed was that bicycle going between two cars.
Yeah, because it's sort of it's kind of ridiculous. The fire stunt on Hoffa, though, I'm very, very proud of as well.
Yeah.
Okay. I forget which ones that I've performed over the years that I'm very proud of. I'm sort of more, I like the fact that I did them, but I'm in most ways I'm kind of prouder of the ones that I've designed and other people have done. Really.
Yeah. Okay. Which one's
that? The funny thing is, although I've done some very, very big stunts, in lots of ways I never considered myself much of a great stuntman, really. I mean, I considered myself always as more of a coordinator and a designer and a director. I think I was very lucky, and I got to do some cool big stunts as a stuntman, but I don't think I was... to be honest about it, I don't particularly think I was that good as a stuntman, really.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm just thinking of some of the films that you have done. Like, say, you said Universal Soldier, Total Recall. I think what's it called? Thor as well.
Thor, yeah. Thor, I didn't do any stunt. I only designed and coordinated all the stunts. Some good stuff that I'm very proud of in that movie, though, too.
Yeah. So would you say the increase in CGI in films is making stunts, say, less dangerous, or
absolutely much more controllable, or they should be? I mean, to put a caveat on that, they don't always, but they should be. And there's a lot of old-fashioned stunt people that sort of instinctively hate CG because they think it's going to take their business away, which is absolute and utter bullshit. It's nonsense. It just shows that they're ignorant, because in reality, the relationship between a stunt coordinator and the visual effects coordinator should be like a marriage. It should be so close, because together you can work out which is the best thing to do real, which can they enhance, and you can make things certainly safer, but more importantly, or as importantly, much more repeatable, because you can say, well, okay, there's a guy falling down the stairs. Do we see the stairs, or can you put the stairs in afterwards? In which case, it could be a padded ramp. Do you see the floor at the bottom when he lands on it? And even if you see it, the visual effects person can say, no, that's no problem at all. We just put a pad there and we'll just paint it out.
Yeah.
And so I talk a lot about that in the instruction book. It's a very important relationship between the visual effects person nowadays and the stunt coordinator, because you can make things much more repeatable, much safer, and much more exciting, with that partnership.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I can definitely see that. So if people wanted to know more about, say, how to do stunts or get to know more about you, what would how would they get to know you or get to know?
The book that I've just written, which is really aimed at stunt coordinators and people that are starting to direct action, and that's the Action Movie Maker's Handbook. But it's weird. It's selling all over the world now, and it's being given out at film schools and to safety people at studios and things now, because it's something that hasn't existed before. And so, that reading that is a good way to see how stunts are done or how action's put together. So that would be a good thing. But then, there's a lot of stuff on my YouTube channels and that, and there's also more and more nowadays on DVDs. There is great stuff behind the scenes, and the reason it's got better over the years, that stuff, is because most people don't buy DVDs, so they want to add as much of that stuff as they possibly can to make the DVD more attractive. So there's some reason to buy it that stops you just renting it. So you can see a lot of behind the scenes stuff, and I'm very proud of, designing the method that Spider-Man swung in the last two movies, because that was the brief that Sony, when we got called in and said, they want to make Spider-Man much more organic, much more real. And, we spent a lot of time working out how to do that. And what I did is, because you looked at the old movies and you know it, at first you looked at them and thought, I know it doesn't look real, but why doesn't it look real? So then I watched them, and then I brought in an Olympic gymnast and put up 3 parallel bars and had him do giant swings between them. And the moment I videoed that, it sounds obvious, but I realised what the issue was with the CG swings that they'd done before. And what it is Spider-Man in the CG versions just swung down, swung up, swung down, swung up, and it's all at the same speed. When you see a gymnast do it, the downward motion is fast, powerful, and violent. And then as he swings past center, it starts going up. It gets slower, 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 slower until he gets negative and grabs the next bar and then comes down again. And I realised in that instant that was what was missing. So I realised we had to do swings to Spider-Man that were really gravity-based. And that's what the Spider-Man before the last one, where we did some sequences, a sequence where he swings away under a bridge. And it's that I'm one of the things I'm most proud of, because we really reinvented the way that stuff was done.
No, that's incredible, actually. Right, and you alluded to the fact as well. Do you hold lectures or classes as well?
I do. I've been holding seminars lately. I did some 2-day ones, and the reason I wrote the book that's come out is because it was something that I originally was going to sort of something to give out for the seminars, and then it became more and more elaborate. And then a month ago, I taught a class 1 day a week at the New York Film Academy, and so of honours students, and it was so popular that, we got packed. It was a 2.5 hour class, 2 hour class, but it went to almost 3 hours every day. And it was really cool, because a lot of these film students are taught a lot about theory of film, but a lot of them have never been taught much about someone that's actually done it, and to talk about action. And it's very, very important, because, as I said to the faculty at the school, the reality is you're going to teach kids that go to this film school, and they'll do a little movie, and the studio will like it, and they'll give them a great big action movie to direct, and they'll have left film school with no ability to deal with action, how to do it even. So what I taught was an approach to action, and a way to look at it, and also a way to watch films and work out what you thought was exciting, how you think it was done, you know, how you think it could be improved. And so it was a very popular class, and you know, there's a lot of that in the book that I wrote, because I think the trouble is with stunt people is that it's quite a selfish business, and people don't pass on information very well. You know, they want to keep hold of it, and, you know, so that they don't lose a job, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I just don't agree with that kind of mentality.
No, I don't understand. Yeah, why people would do that, because that's one of the things I was going to ask you as well about, say, the obstacles you faced, or like, you know, obviously you have to do a lot of networking, say, as well with that in order to get, you know, the next job coming up. So
yeah, although, you know, I've always been a sort of believer. And in lots of ways, I've never been much good at the networking thing. I've always been a believer in, you know, I've always treated it like you would a competitive sport. If you win races, someone will want you to be at the next race or want you on their team or whatever. So I've always figured, if you don't worry really about the next job. If you do a really great job, someone will see it and want you for their movie, you know, and that's always been my philosophy on that sort of thing, you know. And the reason I like to help a lot of young people, and I was, you know, I'm sort of known for bringing on and discovering new talent, is because I think that's the natural way of things. You know, it's stupid for some 60-year-old guy to think that he's as good as he was when he was 20. It's idiotic. And not only that, there'll be a new kid coming along that's 20 now, and is 10 times better than you were when you were 20. You know, so that's part of the cycle of life. And to anyone that thinks they can bypass that cycle is truly an idiot, because you know, there's the whole next generation of stunt people, including my kids and my guys that I work with, their kids, and I'm, you know, that we're now using on movies. They're much better at it than we are, because they've gained all our information and their own. Yeah. So, you know, they're bound to be better equipped.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, because I was going to say, you know, you've got a big family to.
Yeah, and there's some great, you know, we're very lucky, so touch with they're very, you know, I'm very, very proud of the stuff my son's doing, because it's, you know, he's doing some big groundbreaking stuff, and it's nice that he's, you know, he's using sons of other people that I had on my team 30 years ago, you know, so it's lovely that sort of cycle has gone on, you know.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's brilliant. Well, thank you so much for the chat there, Andy. I really do appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well, as I said, you didn't really need an introduction, because when you see Andy Armstrong's body of work, it's just incredible. You know, some of my favourite films that he's worked on. So that's it for me for now. But if you actually want to see more videos and interviews with stunt performers and stunt coordinators from around the world, please go onto my website, www.stuntlives.com, where I'll be interviewing people, and you'll see these videos uploaded on a weekly basis. That's it for me for now, but I hope to catch up with you soon. Bye for now.